We formed a quorum, and it's also the time to start our meeting. So please press the request to speak button. Mr. Albert Chen, 5 minutes. Regarding the system, I'd like to learn more. At different stages or at different times, our border crossing points were commissioned, and so are the computer systems, and technology is developing very rapidly. How can you ensure that this new system can be compatible or can be shared with other systems? Because there is always that possibility. How do you deal with that? Technologically speaking, will the other systems be changed as well? Can I defer to Mr. Locke? Thank you. Well, we use this immigration control systems at all control points. The design is the same for all control points. For this new system, we started implementing them in 2016 at all control points. The design will be used at the Hong Kong-Macau Bridge so that there is no problem of compatibility. When we have a new control point, there may be new development or new technology. How are they linked with other control points? Well, in new technology used in new control points, they are just the same as the immigration control systems we have. So they are all of the same model. So the mode is just the same. So when it comes to communication operation, they are identical. I think you have a server, right? You have a central server and lots of branches, because the control points were commissioned at different times. That means the prevailing technology might be different. Now, for the latest commissioned control point, of course, the technology should be most advanced, and the existing control points may have outdated systems. So, how can you ensure compatibility? Will there be problems as a result of changes in technology? Thank you. In all our infrastructure, we have already ensured that the new immigration control system will be installed. So when we ask our contractor to develop our system, we will ask them to consider compatibility. The technology or speed might be different. However, the operation should be able to meet our requirements. Allow me to supplement. Yes, the assistant director has already explained the technology aspect, and conceptually speaking, we have icons already approved by the council. It was introduced in 2016 as a new system. For other computer system at different control points, of course, they have to be linked to the main system. And as for compatibility and technology, we will ensure that all control point computer systems will be compatible with this immigration control system. We've just established this main system in 2016. and therefore for timing, technology, and other things, they are all compatible. Mr. Chen Ji-chun, 5 minutes. I'd like to follow up on para 10, e-channels for vehicles. So biometric information will be used, and then by mid-2017, a new face recognition technology will also be introduced. I'd like to know the actual operation of this new face recognition technology in e-channels for vehicles. Mr. Locke. In 2017, we will introduce a new face recognition technology to allow people using e-passport to be processed without pre-registration. So it will be introduced in 2017. We're already using this. We have biometric information, that is fingerprint recognition and also face recognition technology. The two technology are similar when it comes to accuracy. And according to research by U.S. Center, face recognition and fingerprint recognition are very accurate, and they're useful for verification of identity. Because the technology is mature, it will be introduced in mid-2017 to allow visitors to go through immigration procedures by self-help. So how does it operate? First, if someone has an e-passport, then the photo from the chip of the e-passport will be taken up, and then real-time photo will be taken, and the two photos will be compared. And then after verification, the recognition process is over. So it's only possible if you have a passport. What about a home return, home visit card? Now, so long as there is a photo in a database or a photo stored in the chip of a document, all we need is a comparison between that photo and a photo taken real time. Is it happening? Well, we have already got vehicular e-channels using face recognition. Cross-border drivers have to register with us first if they use vehicular e-channels, and we allow them to use information in our registry of persons information. In that registry, we have photos of the drivers concerned, and the photo will be compared with the photo taken at the control point. How is the operation different? Well, the operation is more or less the same, but the technology used will be state-of-the-art technology for comparison. Mr. Chen, regarding the fingerprinting system, will it continue to operate at control points? Well, at all e-channels, we have a scanner of fingerprints to help us to verify the Hong Kong residence status. Yes, I do understand, but at control points there are law enforcement officers. Arrest and detention may be made for suspected crimes or whatever. So people will have to have their fingerprints taken as a arrest as part of the arrest procedures. Is it separate? That has nothing to do with the immigration department. What about the anti-hacking and anti-theft technology?
Is the system secure? It is a closed system. This system does not link up with any other system. All the data will be encrypted. No one can find this system. The security measures are in line with the security code of the administration and relevant security measures. Mr. Gary Fan, 5 minutes. Thank you. I have 3 questions about actual operation. The face identification system, is it going to be carried out together with fingerprint identification? And also, is it that we are going to plow into resources into this face identification system? But what if people have undergone cosmetic surgery or used other people's passport photos? Why is this system superior to existing ones? And number 3, if there is a problem, there are manual operations possible, and there are people who will still be there to monitor the passenger clearance system, and investigation and arrests are possible, and people can be invited to be examined in detail. Is that right? AD? Mr. Locke, as for the face identification system, we will allow e-passport holders to have their identities verified by using face identification, so they can use self-help to leave Hong Kong. The technology has developed for over 10 years in the market. And looking at the report of the U.S. National Standards Office, it is said that the technology is similar in technology achievement as the fingerprint identification system. So when we verify identities of travelers, we will introduce the system in the middle of next year. When we do so, travelers will not have to use the fingerprint identification anymore. For finger identification, they have to pre-register. The e-passports do not include a fingerprint. That is not in the chip of e-passports. The IACO's requirement is just for a photo to be included in the e-passport. And so we want to check against the photograph. In other words, you don't need the fingerprint identification when people identify their faces. That goes for departures. As I said, technology-wise, the 2 systems are more or less as accurate. And according to the U.S. report, we can make use of this face identification system. You always cite the U.S. experience. Is it that the U.S. has made the most use of such systems, so they have actual experience? And what about the difference between the system and naked eye checks? Because sometimes criminals need to be examined because they may stutter, because they have something to hide, and they may have a different gait, and this can be observed more easily by the human eye. How can this biometric system do this? Because you just scan the face and there will not be other supplementary examination. Mr. Locke, certainly. we seek to identify the face of travelers. And at our e-channels, there are also immigration control officers. They monitor the use of e-channels, as the member was saying, whether there is any abnormal about the behavior of travelers. If so, our staff will seek to understand the situation immediately, and if necessary, an inquiry will be conducted in order to check the identity of the traveler. As I said, the system has been used in the US, and in fact, it is also applied to many e-channels in Europe. I understand that. After introducing the face identification system, will you reduce the time for your staff to observe the travelers? Because one of your objectives is to speed up the process. No, that won't happen. Our staff will each be responsible for 3 to 5 e-channels. Next, Mr. Ray Chan, 4 minutes. Like to follow up on the supplementary paper, which is a letter given to us on the 16th of June. That is the latest progress of the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge. The Highways Department says it will be completed by the end of 2017, and because of that progress, if money is available, the Security Bureau will conduct tendering in the 4th quarter. If supposing, just supposing, the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge project will be delayed by half a year or a year, will there be an impact on this plan? And your tendering clauses should be drafted in such a way that we should not stand to lose. Say, if there is inclement weather and no one can tell. If you write down a very rigid timeline, then perhaps you might have to compensate the contractors. Thank you. Actually, when we consulted members, the same question was asked at the security panel. So this time around, in the paper, we have said that this will be done in 2 phases. First, since the TH Bureau has told us that we need to be ready by end 2017, so the first stage is for us to work against the timeline of end 2017. After commissioning of the bridge, we'll be able to check the actual situation to carry out stage 2. In our drafting of the contracts, we have included terms and conditions to protect ourselves. First, after the system analysis and design, that will be completed in the 1st quarter of 2017. After that, we have 24 months to inform the other party when to start construction. And after notification is made, the construction has to be completed within 9 months. In other words, as Mr. Ray Chan was saying, if we need to make flexible strategies, we have 24 plus 9 months. In other words, 33 months. So we have the latitude to tie in with the actual progress of the bridge. The TH Bureau has told us that they will do another assessment, but for now, the requirement is for us to be ready by end 2017. That is why we are dividing up into this into 2 stages, and in the contract we have 24 plus 9 months. Chairman, when we vetted the cost overrun of the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge, it is said that some of the project items have been streamlined. I don't know whether that has an impact on this funding request in terms of scale and progress. Under Secretary, we are talking about basic requirements. No matter how the design will be like, we need to tackle vehicle flow and people flow. We will provide the e-channels, the kiosks, and also 6 computer systems for tackling people flow, including identification of fake documents and also checking visas, etc. These are basic requirements so that upon commissioning of the bridge, we can complement the work of the TH Bureau. Mr. Albert Chan, 3 minutes. The Undersecretary talked about the 24 months leeway. You know, technology develops by leaps and bounds. I think it's okay for you to include 24 months for flexibility, but when you call for tenders, will you make sure that technology will be of the state-of-the-art mode? If you can really know the actual progress of the bridge project, then you should wait till a very reasonable completion of the bridge before you call for tenders, so you have the best technology. Undersecretary, this is exactly what we are going to do. At least it will take 14 months from tendering to completion of the system. If we need to complete our system by end 2017, then in the fourth quarter of 2016, we should call tenders. Now we are applying for funding and we'll have to design the tender documents stating our requirements. And in fact, we really need the funding now so that in the fourth quarter of 2016, we can start the tendering process so that 14 months down the road, we'll be able to complement the commissioning of the bridge at the end of 2017. And in fact, this is quite a tight timetable. I have another worry. Para 6 of the paper talks about the number of channels. At most 73 e-channels, 96 traditional immigration counters. That is in the first 10 years of the commissioning of the bridge. But I have doubts about this because I have always questioned the usage of the bridge. I'm quite pessimistic about that. In the end, the Director of Audit will look for value for money and cost effectiveness. It is possible that this passage will see a similar usage as Shuttlecock. It may turn into a white elephant project. What basis did you have and objective information did you have to estimate the number of e-channels and counters? Undersecretary, Mr. Chen asked us for information about the basis for calculation. Everyone is entitled to his view, but we had looked at the assessment in the consultancy report. It is said that upon commissioning, every day there will be 9,200 to 14,000 vehicle trips and 55,850 to 69,200 passengers every day. That is why we have come up with the figures 73 e-channels, 96 immigration counters, and 72 vehicular kiosks. I have reservations about these figures. Over 50,000 travelers a day. What is the figure for Deep Bay now? Please press the button again, Mr. Elvin Young, 5 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. Starting from page 5 of the paper, para 14, capital expenditure, financial implications. May I please ask for certain information? I don't understand why that by 2019 you say there will be another review according to don't understand the basis for the calculation. And also secondly, about the software. Are you buying ready software? Are you going to ask software companies to tailor-make software for this system? Thank you, Chairman. Can I ask Mr. Locke, AD, to answer the question on cost? Mr. Locke. Since there will be 2 stages for system installation, the use of the funds will be such that from 2017 to 2019, that would be the first stage, and that is the money we will need. And then from 2019 to 2021, that will be the second stage. And the e-channels and kiosks will have to be installed in the first stage, and the work will be more intensive than that in this second stage. As for software, we are going to use 2 types of software. At our checkpoints, apart from the checkpoint management system, we do need someone to write some software for us. We will have operating platforms, and also in the government office computer systems, we can also buy some software. Therefore, it depends whether we need dedicated software or whether the software is readily available in the market. Our procurement will be a little different. Chairman, can I follow up the second answer? At present, in which place in the world do you find a company that will be available for providing the service? Or is it widely available, or is that available only in one country? Mr. Locke, even if we talk about dedicated software, many software companies in Hong Kong can already provide the service. The software we need is readily available, but when it is applied at border checkpoints, it may not comply with our requirements, and therefore some software development has to be done in order to comply with our requirements. Chairman, the Bureau talked about local companies. Did I hear you correctly? Are you saying local companies already have the technology? And then in future procurement, will you give priority to local companies? Mr. Locke, every time we do procurement, we do it through open tendering. We welcome bidding by international and Hong Kong companies. This is according to the government procurement regulations. Chairman, I'd like to ask, pardon me for being not very knowledgeable in IT. Maybe Mr. Charles Smock knows more. This has to do with security and face recognition technology. Will it be kept in the database of the Immigration Department? If yes, can you make sure that it will be kept from leaking as our fingerprints at present? Mr. Locke, we place a lot of emphasis on protection of personal data. We have issued a code to our staff and also many operating procedures for staff to follow when they develop software and hardware. At the same time, when we install new systems, we will assess security of personal data to see whether the system can comply with local requirements. Next, Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, 5 minutes. The paper says that it is possible to have residual computer equipment beneath the maximum requirement, and that is if we expect vehicular flow and passenger flow not to be at a high level at the Hong Kong-Zhuhai Macau Bridge, how can we move the system elsewhere? In Para 7, you say we propose to deploy any surplus computer equipment to other control points as and when appropriate. I can cite the example of the cruise terminal. It's so successful. Many friends asked me why you build such a lyric football pitch by the sea. People thought it was a football pitch. Your cruise terminal. I use this as an example. At the cruise terminal, you have made wrong estimates by a wide margin. Do you know how wrong you have been, and what measures have you implemented at the cruise terminal to move surplus computer equipment elsewhere?
Under Secretary, I'll ask Mr. Choi to talk about the Assistant Director, the patronage at the cruise terminal. Mr. Choi, yes, thank you, Chairman. In 2015, at the Kai-Tak cruise terminal, basically, our e-channels, in terms of immigration, inbound immigration, there are 4 channels and 3 channels for exit from Hong Kong, so altogether 8 e-channels, and there are 8 counters for inbound traffic and 7 for outbound traffic, so altogether 15 kiosks. At the cruise terminal, you can see that it does not really have a lot of people coping with passengers from cruises at berth. So we have not invested much resources in immigration counters there. In 2014, on average, on a daily basis, in 2014, there are 3,448 incoming passengers, and in 2015 there were more than 4,000. That is, so I mean 3,428, not 34 million people. For cruise services, upon the request of cruise companies, we would dispatch our own staff to go to the stop before Hong Kong, on board the vessel, and then in between the journey from that port to Hong Kong, our staff will carry out the immigration processing procedures. So you're talking about the per capita figure, but how about e-channels? So e-channels accommodate less than half of the overall passengers, the 7 e-channels altogether. So in other words, just 3,000 people a day. Does that include exit and outbound passengers? Well, that includes exit and inbound passengers. So that's a great project. So that means your projection for the cruise terminals, I know it's not your responsibility. You're just working according to orders. You just do it because of the bluffing by the Central Policy Unit. Based on the puff-up figures, you do the work. So there are 12 control points. I'm not going to ask about the control point at Shuttlecock, but all of the Hong Kong people around here can see that your projections for the various big projects are wrong. Now you're saying that for the Macau-Hong Kong-Zhuhai Bridge, you will carry out the work, and if there's surplus capacity, then we'll do it elsewhere. But then where are you talking about? You should move the operations at cruise terminal to the Hong Kong-Macau-Zhuhai Bridge instead of having 2 wrong projections. If you have 2 wrong projections, you're going to add them up as 1. I'm not going to make things difficult for you, but I'd like to ask you, for the Hong Kong-Macau-Zhuhai Bridge, the projection there is really marvelous. I think it's an over-projection. So do you have any contingency plan so they can deploy really surplus computer equipment? Have you worked out any removal works? We've got too many control points anyway, 12 of them. Well, Under Secretary, we did move around the equipment before. We used to move some e-channels to Lok Ma Chau control point. So we have actual experience in doing that. Can you give me an answer then? After the commissioning of the 3 one-way system, will there be a big increase in Hong Kong's cargo trade and passengers trade? But you are talking about technology changes in 24 months. Well, Raymond Wong, you have 5 minutes. Next. Thank you, Chairman. Well, we have the Undersecretary here, and we are talking about the commissioning of a system of new computer systems and control points. And you got $304 million earlier on. There was a cost overrun, so you're now asking for more money. under Head 710, this computerization plan. Well, I know that your paper always blows up the figures. You are taking the money from the CWRF to install the computer systems at control points. This is a technical project that needs to be done. But in your paper, I know when you are here, coming here for money, you need to write the paper in such a way that you need to tell us what sorts of systems are we talking about, what they are, and in fact to get our support. And now that you know your paper, you give us all the way that you draft the papers is really annoying. You're saying that you want to include Hong Kong into the sort of intercity circle and to provide more opportunities for Hong Kong, but that has nothing to do with the computer system. This is a computer system that we're talking about. You should have told us with this system at the control points what are the benefits and how would it facilitate the flow on the bridge. But in the paper, you said that you would strive to help people make use of the bus network to the airport and across the district, and also the airport to remote areas like Manshan, Shaikong, Shanshui. Well, that would take at least the whole journey, at least an hour. And in the Hong Kong-Macau Joint Bridge, the control point there, any bus route will have to go to the airport first and then to other places. I have a doubt about why it takes so long. And also, you want to say that you tell us how you gonna facilitate the passenger flow. How many Hong Kong people will really use the Hong Kong-Macau Joint Bridge? There's a big question mark over it. In the East Rail Line, we have seen similar problems. In Lo Wu Station, the train will be packed with mainland tourists already, and the compartments are very congested. Even those living in Tai Po, Fanling, there's no room for passengers that are getting on board the train in where they live. So at the control points, you need to think about all these issues. When you work out the sum, you need to consider whether that would really have any impact on people living along the route. In the paper, you said that in the car parks, you would provide 650 car parking spaces so that people will be able to arrive at the scene by driving. But are the car parking spaces only for Hong Kong people? Can you give us the answers, please? Undersecretary? I think Raymond Wong, I think you're not referring to the paper provided by the Security Bureau. Well, I'd like you to answer still. I don't know which paper you're referring to. I haven't really seen it. I really have no idea how to answer your question. It's not the paper provided by us. You may be talking about another paper, but in our paper, it's exactly what you want to know. That is, with the system, what benefits can be there and why we're having the system, what is the content of the system. I think it's really unrelated to the paper you were referring to. Yeah, but I know, but I'm trying to bring from one paper to the computer, to relate that paper to the computer systems that you are asking money for. No, I have to clarify that I didn't provide you with that paper. I wouldn't provide you with a paper that I have no idea of. I don't know what paper you are referring to. In all of your questions, please give me each individual question clearly and let me see whether I can answer that. This computer systems, the installation of the systems. As for the passenger flow, in your paper, you really didn't make things clear. Other members have asked similar questions, so I'd like to know. Well, you always like to blow up things without really addressing the real needs. You shouldn't have done that. There's no need for you to blow up figures. You need to give us concrete ideas of the demand now for the computer systems. Then we will be able to know what the situation is like. Sometimes we get lost reading the paper. You just told us information unrelated to the systems. Like in this paper, 2016-17 FCR 50, the same problem occurs. Undersecretary, In this paper, we mentioned our grounds for installing the computer systems. We also mentioned with the system at the control points, how many channels there will be, how many counters there will be, and so forth. No, in paragraph 13 of your paper, you said that the control points can actually provide uninterrupted quality and mission-critical immigration clearance services, and also support Hong Kong's leading position as an international trade and tourism hub. We've seen similar wordings in many other places. It's just nonsense. Well, we are talking about, the implementation of icons and 6 other computer systems and new control points provide uninterrupted quality and mission-critical immigration clearance services upon commissioning in support of Hong Kong's leading position as an international trade and tourism hub. I think that's the truth. Next one, please. Leung Kwok Hong. Just now I asked you, Chairman, how you do your estimates and how you're going to redeploy your equipment. You said that you had experience, but is it like a portable suitcase? That is, if you don't need it, then you can just deliver it, like in the case of delivering pizza, and then plug in the device elsewhere. And secondly, when you move equipment around, how about the cost? Would it be shouldered by the suppliers or you? I don't know. I have no idea. And your plan, this failed plan, cruise terminals projections are all wrong, as one example. And you are taking $912 million in 2013 to do the work to carry out a immigration clearance systems. I don't know whether the Director of Audit has time. They will always see problems with your calculations. I really don't think that the 900 million plus needed used for implementation has not worked well. Have you assessed that at your 12 control points, which of them have surplus capacity and which one has not been able to meet the big demand? And have you actually deployed surplus facility at the control points with excess capacity to elsewhere where the capacity is inadequate? I'm giving you money to install a system, and yet we may end up finding that more money is needed to handle the transfer of surplus capacity. It's like renting a subdivided flat, and you said that it's livable, and yet once I moved, I found that there's no toilet, and then I'm going to move to another flat, and then there's the moving costs in question. We're talking about the funding of more than $900 million in 2013, and now we're talking about total cost of actually $3,000 billion, and and in the past we funded $900 million for one project. Are we going to have big elephant giving rise to smaller white elephant projects? To the tune of a total cost of actually hundreds of billions of dollars. Who are going to shoulder the final costs? Undersecretary, I must reiterate that any estimates are not for one single day. Our design has to be able to cope with the demand during peak seasons. On a daily average, there's a gap of 46% in terms of difference between the flow on one day, each particular day, and the average. I'm talking about the cost they're going to shoulder to pay for the differences between the peak season and the average day. It's meaningless for you to mention that there is the high and the low points. For the high point, well, if you speculate on stocks, it's really meaningless to talk about the difference between the high season and the low season, because we are talking about a difference of 40%. Are you going to look at how UK actually incur huge losses in the competitions. Now the whole country of Britain is crying because of its huge loss incurred from soccer gambling. Next one is Albert Chen. I'd just like to ask about the basis for your consultants' estimates. That is on every day from Hong Kong to Zhuhai, Macau. How many people are we talking about? How many passengers are we talking about every day? Do you have such figure? I'll ask Mr. Choi, Assistant Director, to give you the immigration figures. Mr. Choi, thank you, Chairman. In terms of the passengers going to Macau in the mainland by ferry, we have the Macau Ferry Terminal and the China Ferry Terminal handling those passengers. In 2014, on average, 80,500 a day. In 2015 is 47,000 in total. And for the China Ferry Terminal in 2014, on average, every day, the passenger is 25,100. In 2012 is 23,300. So altogether, 70,000 passengers every day. But if you look at the journey from Central going there, if you ask people to go to Zhuhai, not by ferry instead, in China you can go to Zhuhai in about an hour by ferry. But if you ask them to take the Hong Kong Macau China Bridge instead in future, it may take longer. So with the bridge being commissioned, there may be more people going to the mainland. But on the whole, there is only about 50,000 people on a day. I think I need to put on record that your projection has been over-optimistic. I don't know whether your consultant's report is open to the public. I'd really like to study, what the projections, how they are arrived at. I think your projections have been too optimistic. I think your projected facilities, please don't rely too much on the consultant's report. Otherwise, we'll have one more white elephant project that will lead to waste of public resources. Let me go home 3 minutes. Okay, back to the question again. People who have been listening to this FC will find it bewildering. You said that when you have any cost overruns, you would look at the cycle of technology to make sure that there will not be any wastage. But your projection for the passenger flow, it's like comparing high or peak seasons and the low season figures. But you have 12 control points here, and I'm not going to talk about the projections for the other control points. If you're writing a contract, you would just, can you make any modifications of the equipment on the spot? You know that the services, I know it's Chairman Hong who did the projections. It's not you who did the projections, but Chairman Hong now is in the Central Policy Unit, taking on government jobs, and he actually set up a company at PolyU and calling it China Development, something like China Development Center, to take on government consultancy studies, and he did the projections there. But when they are wrong, you need to admit that they are wrong. If you refuse to admit mistakes have been made, then what's happening to Hong Kong is like have you seen, Undersecretary, have you seen the Russian doors? They are bundled together. As long as one is wrong in size, then all the other doors will have to be amended in size. Because once you have made one mistake, then you have to cover up lies, one lie after another. We don't have the time to do that, though. We can't afford that. It's the same as in Russian doors. As long as one door is of the wrong size, then all the other doors have to be changed. Every time, when there is a projection that was wrongly made a few years ago, then we acknowledge that, and then you would say that we're just, making things difficult. I can't say anymore. Well, even if you can't answer a question, you can still get the money you want. I really have no more energy to ask the same questions. I mean, how are you going to come up with the projections? And what sorts of contingency measures do you have to cope with the result of wrong projections? Has the director of audit looked at it? I don't know. Has the $900 million in the past been well used? I don't know.
And yet you are asking for more money. Have you got anything in response? In 2013, $900 million. How much of that $900 million has been spent? We were very generous in back then. Mr. Bachan, what about the report on circulation? Can you, on passenger throughput, can you make open the public? Well, it is the THB's duty to make projections on pedestrian throughput, and I understand that when the THB applied for funding, the same questions were asked, and the Bureau tried its best to answer members' questions back then. As regards details of the report, I think I have to defer to the THB. I hope members understand that the Security Bureau faces this problem. We have to be ready by 2017 so that we can tie in with the commissioning of the bridge. And therefore, we must make plans to make this happen. The Security Bureau can only base our estimate on the professional analysis of the consultancy. We have got flexible measures. And for phase 1, the facilities will be able to cope with 60% of the full capacity, and we've also provided another 24 months, and as a result, it will be 33 months before all facilities will be completed. This is to address members' concerns. When there are changes, then the Security Bureau has already given the greatest considerations and will ensure that resources will not be wasted. If, for instance, in Lok Ma Chau, we have added facilities in response to the views by different members in this council. Mr. Long Kwok Hong, 2 minutes. If your projection is wrong, the computer system is an installation. It cannot be once it is purchased. But manpower deployment is flexible. You must have some projections. If the passenger throughput is low for a particular control point, if you have miscalculation of the peak and also the bottom, then you should have flexible arrangements. Unless you're trying to cover the lies, you continue to employ superfluous staff. Now, I'm not saying that they are lazy. However, they have to be deployed there to show that your projections is correct. That's the same with the cruise terminal. In order to cover up the lies, you continue to do that, and the Communist Party have been doing this for many years. Since you cannot you cannot be proved wrong, you are acting like a set of Russian dolls. So you're going to fill the post according to your planned establishment, because the computer system will be there anyway. For instance, a shuttlecock and cruise terminal, will you deploy people away from it if the throughput is not as high as you projected? Well, of course, you can choose not to answer it. For sure, you will get the money. I've already spent my 1 minute asking you questions. I just want to show people how this government administers Hong Kong. So for many of the control points, the throughput has been overestimated. Mr. Albert Chan, there have been many mistakes when it comes to the projections of the throughput of our control points. Take D-Bay as an example. The projection of vehicular and passenger traffic is a far cry from what was the projections back then, the vehicular throughput in particular. Of course, I understand that the administration has a conventional mode of doing things, but I hope you can conduct an internal review and assessment on the projections by THB. Even though we cannot see the consultancy report, you should take a look at it and do your own projections, and not for the sake of manpower and equipment planning. Of course, the THB's consultancy report is important in a certain respect, but due to past mistakes in projections, I think you should do your own assessment and come to an independent judgment. Ms. Claudia Mo, I do have strong views about the paper. I just feel that when officials answered the questions, we asked whether the report on passenger throughput could be published, and then the reply was it was from the THB, not under the SB. So this is the government's way of doing things. When everything goes smoothly, you talked about division of labor, accountability, and each department responsible for its own things. Yes, when it comes to the fire, it is the FSD's responsibility. When there is a big problem, you claim that you have an interdepartmental or inter-bureau force efforts. I have very deep regret for the way this government operates. Of course, this is not the problem of the current Undersecretary. We do understand. When we ask something here, you will say that it is another bureau's responsibility, not mine. And please note, we are talking about upgrading the computer systems at control points. We are talking about security. We're simply asking you to pass the paper. Well, this will not do. It's just an expression of opinion. Of course, if the Undersecretary would like to reply, I welcome that. Undersecretary, yes, I understand the main point of Ms. Claudia Mo's remarks. Just now, colleagues or members asked for more information on the consultancy report, and what I said was I would relay this concern to the THB, which is the owner of that document. So this view will be relayed to the Bureau, and I understand that members are entitled to their own projections of passenger throughput. However, there is nothing I have to overturn the projections by the consultancy report. And we've also built in flexibility. The system will be rolled out in 2 phases, and we also gives ourselves 24 months. Within that 24 months, we can inform the contractor at any time when works should start, an additional 9 months for it to complete the project. That means we have 33 months. By doing it in 2 phases, we'll be able to handle the situation where the actual throughput is not as high as expected in the beginning. So we've already addressed the views expressed by different members here. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, 1 minute. Well, I will stop after this minute. I'd just like to share with you a story, a very enlightening one. As we all know, the Great Leap Forward and the People's Commune, and also 3 flags happened in the mainland, and there was a big plague, and then people starved, almost starved. And then there were photos taken to show Chairman Mao that harvest was very good, and then some suggested that some food should be sold to India because they didn't have enough food. And as a result, 30 million Chinese people starved to death because grains were sold to India because they were worried that there won't be enough barns to store the grains. As a result, 30 million people starved to death. Mr. Bachchan. So according to the Secretary, about 70,000 trips are being made to Zhuhai and Macau on a daily basis. So the projection for the future throughput will be the current basis plus some growth. For instance, people using the ferry as central may turn to the bridge. I think it all depends on the time factor and cost effectiveness. If I'm in central, in 15 minutes I would reach Macau, and I won't make a big day tour to go via the Hong Kong-Zhuhai Macau bridge. And you should also take into account new arrivals and new population. I have reservation about this population. You can also ask the THB. Well, I have some reservations about your projections. Would you elaborate or explain? Of course, ultimately it is the THB's responsibility, but since you have to design a computer to cope with the expected throughput, and if it is wrong, then it is your responsibility. Of course, similar questions have been asked, and it's just for your reference. Mr. Wu Chihai, when supplementary provision was sought for the Hong Kong-Zhuhai Macau Bridge, we were told that phase 2 was to take care of extra passenger and vehicular throughput. So if come stage 2 it is found that the vehicular and passenger throughput is not as high as expected, then works will not start for the second phase. Well, it's a matter of works. It is THB's decision as to how works should proceed. As far as the Security Bureau and the Immigration Department are concerned, we must provide immigration facilities. However, whether there is stage 2 or not, the demand for computer facilities will not be increased. We are talking about the immigration requirements on the artificial island in the coming 10 years. So if they need new facilities in their works, our design will be our design is such that we can cope. That is for the Immigration Department alone. At this control point, we won't need further funding. Well, perhaps you have misunderstood my question. Well, there are two phases here. First, according to the work plans on the artificial island, depending on the vehicular and passenger throughput, there may be other immigration arrangements. So my question is, if for phase 2 they are not going to proceed, if the facilities for phase 1 is already sufficient, that means the money provided for phase 2 will not be used. Yes, there is this possibility. If there are changes, then stage 2 will see some changes, adjustments. So we have secure some flexibility in time, and if need be, we can also lower the number of such facilities. We have that in our contractual terms. Well, according to the paper, you have a time frame. before stage 2 really proceeds, can a paper be given to the security panel so that we can be updated of the progress of stage 1 and whether stage 2 will proceed? Yes, if necessary, we are more than happy to provide an information paper to the security panel. Thank you. If there are no further questions, I now put this item to the vote. FCR 2016-17-15. For those who are in favor, please raise their hands. Those against, please raise their hands. I think members voting are in favor of the paper. The paper is passed. Next, FCR 2016-17-53. The paper seeks members' approval of the pay scale and adjustment mechanism for locally engaged staff in the Hong Kong Economic and Trade Office in Jakarta. The TNI panel was consulted earlier on to answer members' questions. We have Mr. Philip Yong, Permanent Secretary for Commerce and Economic Development, and his team present. Can I give the floor to Mr. Wong Ting Kong, Chairman of the panel, to report the deliberations of the panel to us? Thank you. The panel, in principle, supports the setup of a new Hong Kong ETO in Jakarta and to reorganize the Hong Kong Washington ETO of ETO. We should step up our network in the Belt and Road countries so as to enhance our trade relations with these places. Some members urged the administration to conclude the Hong Kong ASEAN Free Trade Agreement ASAP so that Hong Kong exports into ASEAN countries can be treated more favorably. Some members are concerned as to overseas cities where there are both Hong Kong ETOs and TDC offices. There may be duplication of resources. Members are of the view that the TDC should focus on newly developed markets. It is suggested that the TDC offices can be moved to other cities so as to enhance Hong Kong SAR's overseas network. Besides, some members expressed concern about the issue of foreign domestic helpers in Hong Kong. The proposed Hong Kong ETO in Jakarta should deal with Indonesian foreign domestic helpers as well. Thank you. Questions? Mr. Albert Chen, 5 minutes. Can the PS clarify the following? Mr. Wong, the chairman of the panel, said that the office is for the Belt and Road Initiative. However, in this paper, I don't see the Belt and Road Initiative. Has there been a secret deal known only to Mr. Wong Ting Kwong? Or has the Commerce and Economic Development Bureau deliberately hidden the truth from us? P.S. Thank you. We propose to set up a new Hong Kong ETO in Jakarta. The purpose is to enhance Hong Kong's representativeness in the 10 ASEAN countries. We've already got an office in Singapore. However, ASEAN is a very important new market to the industry, and therefore we believe it is necessary to set up an ETO there to enhance our trade and commerce relations there. And ASEAN, Jakarta is a part of the Belt and Road countries, but ASEAN is a place which we consider very important. It will it has tremendous business opportunities, and we are now discussing with ASEAN a free trade agreement. Once it is concluded, the Hong Kong ETO in Jakarta will be very useful for the implementation of the FTA, and it will also play a very important role in helping us to establish trade ties there. Right, this has been happening for many years. But the Belt and Road Initiative was all of a sudden mentioned in this year's policy address.
So, is it that you have planned for this office for a long time? Is it in accordance with the need of your work, or are you just looking the CE just like some loyalist members? They say this is required by the Belt and Road Initiative. I think you have to come clean on that because the two are very different stories. P.S. Thank you, Chairman. We want to develop the Southeast Asia market. We have worked on that for many years. It is not that only today we want to carry out extra work. We'd like to have a new ETO in Asia. It was mentioned a long time ago. As I said, ASEAN is an important economic partner. Looking at trade in goods, all 10 countries in ASEAN constitute the second largest economic partner of Hong Kong, and every year the trade volume is $100 billion. And as for trade in services, ASEAN is our fourth biggest partner. And this is not done overnight. It is that for many years in the past, we have worked through the sectors and also ourselves in order to maintain this relationship with ASEAN. Jakarta is where the Secretariat of ASEAN is. We believe a new Jakarta ETO will help us liaise with ASEAN countries, especially when we have the FTA signed with ASEAN. This will become a very important place for our work. Does the ASEAN have any committees or organizations particularly set up for the Belt and Road Initiative? P.S. I have not heard anything about that. Not anything in this regard about ASEAN. But of course, ASEAN countries have very close trade relations with ourselves and other countries. The administration is proposing to set up an ETO in Jakarta. It was planned before the Belt and Road Initiative mentioned by the CE. Is that right? Correct. Mr. Wang Ting-Kwang. Thank you, Chairman. As the PS said in response to Mr. Albert Chan, the Hong Kong business sector has always wanted to open up the ASEAN market. It has asked the SARG to strengthen its presence in ASEAN. Excuse me. The sector is actually urging the SARG to sign the FTA with ASEAN as soon as possible. The sector wants this to be expedited. At the same time, the mainland has put forward this strategic initiative, the Belt and Road Initiative. That ties in with Hong Kong's market development in the 10 countries of ASEAN. Therefore, at the CI panel, when this issue was discussed, we touched upon every aspect. And unlike Mr. Albert Chan said that CY Leung proposed the Belt and Road Initiative, well, I don't think he is in a position to mention this worldwide strategy. I like to say that we need an office in Jakarta, the headquarters of ASEAN. I hope this can be done ASAP. The DAB supports the proposal. Thank you. Mr. Sin Chung Kai. At the ESC, I said this already, and I'd like to mention it here. We support the opening of the office. In Hong Kong, there are many Indonesian domestic maids. Traditionally, ETOs don't exactly look after domestic maids, but there are many Indonesian domestic helpers in Hong Kong. Ms. Emily Lau, our chairman of DP, has talked to you about this many times through different channels. I'll state again that I hope this office will help handle cases relating to Hong Kong Indonesian domestic helpers, whether they are complained against or whether they have complaints. Maybe it is not within your jurisdiction, but at least you have to pay attention. Before they come to Hong Kong, are Indonesian maids subject to very unfair treatment? I understand the LW Bureau has issued codes of practice to Hong Kong intermediaries. I have said something about the code as well, and I said part of the work is to regulate local intermediaries and who should be their counterparts in Indonesia. If the Indonesian companies treat Indonesian maids harshly, then Hong Kong intermediaries should not conduct business with them. Sometimes, before they come to Hong Kong, the maids are already heavily indebted. The office belongs to your bureau, but I hope you will cooperate with the LW Bureau. I also urge you to work with the LW Bureau. In Hong Kong, there are many Indonesian maid associations or organizations. Maybe you can liaise with them more when the office is set up. This will help maintain Hong Kong's international image and also ensure fair treatment for Indonesian maids. P.S. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for that view. About Indonesian maids, well, that will be part of the jurisdiction of this new office. We explained that already at the ESC. When the ETO is set up, we can liaise more with the Indonesian government, and the Hong Kong Labour Department and other departments can liaise more with Indonesian counterparts, so the maids have more information before they come to Hong Kong, and we can help them more when they have come to Hong Kong. Ms. Emily Lau. Chairman, I agree with what Mr. Sin Chung Kai said, and I have discussed with the PS. There are over 300,000 foreign domestic helpers in Hong Kong, half of them from Indonesia, half of them from the Philippines and some other places. This office will look after Indonesia and the Philippines. I think you should work together with the LW Bureau and the Security Bureau. They are responsible for Indonesian maids. You need to get more information from them so your Jakarta ETO staff can do more. Last year, I was in Jakarta and Manila to talk to the ministers responsible. It is not that we want to teach other countries how to do their governance, but hopefully their systems can improve, or else everything will be blamed on the Hong Kong government. I said many times on different occasions that they say Hong Kong is the best, and I said, oh no, there are so many problems in Hong Kong, and yet they say Hong Kong is the best. I have talked to Mr. Matthew Cheung. You did not have this idea yet at that time, and he already said that when maids are preparing to come, Hong Kong, they should be trained and be told what Hong Kong is like. Their responsibilities and rights should be taught to them. Now that you have the ETO, I hope there will be cooperation with the Indonesian government. I hope you give them more information to ask them to do better and to regulate the intermediaries. What about Manila? What can you do? P.S. Thank you for the view. The ETO in Jakarta will certainly do its best to communicate on the issue of domestic maids, and so that the maids can know more about Hong Kong before they come. This ETO will be in Jakarta. However, it's also responsible for the Philippines. By the same token, when the office liaises with the Filipino government, Filipino maids will also be handled the same way. And the staff sent to that office will be alerted to the views of the ESC and the FC for their attention. Chairman, apart from those two biggest countries, there are maids coming to Hong Kong from other Southeast Asian countries. Therefore, half is going to be handled by the Jakarta ETO, the other half by Singapore ETO. If the ETOs know that the countries under their care are sending maids to Hong Kong, please give them the information. There may not be a lot of them coming to Hong Kong, but since you have got the information already, and it should apply to all countries wanting to export maids to Hong Kong. P.S. Can you do that? No problem. Whether it's the Jakarta or Singapore ETOs, this will be part of their work. Ms. Claudia Mo. Thank you, Chairman. I certainly support this item, and I agree totally with Ms. Emily Lau on the issue of foreign domestic helpers. Well, but I have this criticism to make. I have heard Ms. Emily Lau say 3 times Jakarta in a special way. Now I see the legal advisor twisting her face, looking at me. Is it that I have said something wrong? Well, you say it may not mean a lot when you translate Jakarta into different Chinese names. You say it points to the same city, but then why don't you use the local traditional translation? That's it. Mr. Felix Chung. Question for the PS. The ASEAN Trade Agreement. It is said that it will be implemented this year. Is that true? 2 years ago, the SALG discussed a foreign business investment agreement with the Myanmar government. What is the progress? PS. About the FTA agreement with ASEAN, discussion is going at full steam. 7 rounds of talks have been conducted. The next round will take place before the 3rd quarter of this year. The plan is to complete the talks this year, and then the 2 parties will go back and complete internal procedures so this agreement can be signed. As for the protection of investment agreement together with Myanmar government, the discussion has ended and the text has been initialed. The two parties will have to confirm certain wording in the text, and then there can be final signing. Now that it is initialed, does it have effect now? Or do you have to wait for it to be finally signed? It will commence only after final signatures. Why is there a delay for 2 years? Since there are 3 languages used, Chinese, English, and Myanmese, and therefore it took time to check against the different texts. What is the problem here with us or with the Myanmar government? We have certain views about the Myanmarese rendition, and it is now being considered by the Myanmar government. But now you have a new government in Myanmar. Will there be new problems? Will there be further delays? Because the new government doesn't know what the old government has said. At different levels, we have told the Myanmar government that they should complete internal confirmation of the text as soon as possible. Our ETO staff, and also at meetings, if they come into contact with Myanmar officials, we always mention that they should do internal recognition of the text. The PS said if they should bump into Myanmar officials on occasions. Now, why did you not do it formally? Why do you have to wait to bump into officials? No, I mean, through regular channels, we'll certainly maintain close liaison with the Myanmar government. And I was saying, apart from that, if we attend international conferences, we will also seize the opportunity to talk to Myanmar officials because we want to complete the work ASAP. I hope the PS will implement this as soon as possible because there are more Hong Kong businessmen investing in Myanmar, and we need the protection of investment legislation. And I'm a little worried whether the new government is following up on the issue. PS, can you try to do this ASAP? Do you have a timetable? Well, our liaison with Myanmar is already very close. We will try to do more. Albert Chen, 4 minutes. PS, I have worries about more ETOs. I know, of course, that there is a background to this one, and it may be needed by Hong Kong's economy. But then there is this natural inclination on the part of the administration, and that is to have a bloated structure. You will always say you have a lot to do, that you do not have enough manpower. That goes for traditional bureaucracy. Technocrats would always create work so the organization can bloat. This is the result of research by sociologists through the centuries. This is an original sin of government machineries. And you need to have checks and balances so you cannot forever expand. There is more spending of public money, and in the end the public will be harmed. So you need a criterion. If at a certain place it has become our second largest trade partner, then you need an ETO, then that is reasonable. And if there is increase on this part, there should be shrinking of volume and scale on another part. And I hope you will cancel one office to offset any new offices. Just like high-ranking civil service positions, you always have to offset a new position with an existing one because we want to freeze the number. PS, we agree that when we expand our structure, we have to be very cautious to make sure that resources are used in the most effective way. Before we opened this Jakarta ETO, the last ETO was opened in Berlin almost 10 years ago. We have always been very careful in dealing with this. And apart from Indonesia, we also have plans to open an ETO in South Korea. But when we do so, we'll certainly balance the benefit to our economy when we seek to open such ETOs. We are an open-oriented or externally oriented economy. We need to have more overseas representation so we can help our business sector.
And we'll be cautious and prudent. Well, it's meaningless. Your overall economy is like a zero-sum game. So if there's any economic partner that exists that percentage of our economy, and then you will open the post. But now that, well, the previous second economy has moved to another place, and then you can reduce the office in the economies lower down. You cannot just keep saying that because there's this increase in economy, and then you create a post for that. I know the ground for that, but percentage-wise, there must be other economies that are shrinking in terms of its share. So you just keep adding offices, then you just keep expanding without curtailing the resources for the shrinking economies. So you can't just always get what you want. You can't work like that. P.S. Overseas, our ETOs, all of them are in our major partners. On the whole, the global development is such that, economic and trade volumes have kept increasing in each of our ETOs. Actually, they are helpful to promoting our relationships with our trade partners. But every time we create a new office, we must come to LegCo to seek LegCo's approval before an office is set up. We will actually have adequate opportunities to review whether it's appropriate to open another ETO. Chen Chi-chen, 5 minutes. Chairman, following up on the question raised by Claudia Mo, I think the administration can try to answer that. In the names of many overseas places in your press releases and also on the websites of your official organizations, there are variations. Sometimes the terms used by the community is different from the official terms, like in Chinese, Singapore and Singapore. The official name, pronunciation in Chinese is Singapore. I don't know why, in Chinese, 紐西蘭、新西蘭、雪梨、悉尼, in relation to various overseas cities. Same with Jakarta, Jakarta in Chinese. All along, the official name is Jakarta, whereas the community calls it Jakarta. So, are you following up any official changes in the pronunciation of the names or what? Administration? Basically, we will use the common way of calling it or common translations. I think the most important is we all know what are the common usage. That means you haven't studied whether in Chinese Jakarta, why the other name is used. I think it seems like your definition of common usage is different from that of Claudia Mo's. I'm not going to argue over this, but if there has been any changes, please let members know why a change is made. Okay, back to a policy issue. Now, with the creation of the new office, it will be superior to the ETO in Singapore because it will look at the office, the work in Singapore. So that's been a change in the division of work. Will this arrangement affect the morale in the Singapore ETO, or will it cause any change to the actual work of the Singapore ETO? Because the head of the Jakarta ETO will have a higher pay package than that of Singapore. Well, the future head of a Jakarta ETO will be the most senior representative in the ASEAN region. So, in terms of Brunei, Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, this Jakarta ETO will also oversee the Singapore office. We feel that this will be an effective arrangement of work, because with this new ETO, the Singapore ETO then can concentrate its time and effort on dealing with the 6 remaining ASEAN countries. And it can also develop, more work in the 6 cities, which has not been possible in the past because of limited manpower. In some second-tier cities with potential for economic ties and trade, the Singapore office can step up its work there. So you're saying that the Singapore ETO will not look at 4 cities, Indonesia, Philippines, Malaysia, and so forth. So that means in future the Singapore ETO will carry out more work in Tier 2 cities. Is that your expectation for the Singapore ETO? Yes, that's what the Singapore ETO can do more work in, and we do hope that it will really do more work in those places. The Jakarta ETO, the 4 ASEAN cities or countries that it will look at, will they be of the same level? Then the cities to be looked at by as Singapore ETO, and that the Singapore ETO will be accountable to the Jakarta ETO. Yes, it's just that the liaison with the Secretariat of the ASEAN Indonesia will also be undertaken by Jakarta ETO. Okay, Leung Kwok Hong next. It's very easy to understand because you want to strengthen your ties with ASEAN. Therefore, the headquarters of ASEAN will be a place where you have an ETO. That's appropriate. But do you think it's London who decides what Brussels will do, or Brussels decide what London should do? Singapore is the London in Asia, and Jakarta is the Brussels in Asia. The party that gives away money. Do you think it's Brussels which decides how Europe should act? Anyway, I find it strange. Why is it that you're so politically incorrect? One Belt, One Road. Have you got a roadmap for that? All our branches, besides the one in Jakarta, there's none related to One Belt, One Road. Have you got any plan to, on the basis of One Belt, One Road, go for a rearrangement again? ASEAN is not intended for to support One Belt, One Road, but on the contrary, is supposed to counteract One Belt, One Road. Have you thought about that? Brussels countering London. Which of the countries is related to One Belt, One Road? Are they in One Belt, One Road? Let me read out the names. Washington, New York, San Francisco, Toronto, North America, Brussels, which is in Western Europe, London, Zurich, Berlin, Tokyo, Sydney, Singapore, which is related to One Belt, One Road. And yet you are still adamant and continuing this way. Is it because you know that Xi Wang will step down? I'd like to ask you, how are these cities related to One Belt, One Road? Thank you, Chairman. As I said earlier, ASEAN is an emerging market that we need to develop. And within the ASEAN, quite a number of ports and cities are on the Maritime Road, the Silk Maritime Road. Therefore, in developing new markets, we need to look at what are the potential markets there. Our ETO, for example, those in Europe, are also actually related to the future One Belt, One Road. So saying that the ASEAN is in close relationship with One Belt, One Road, yeah? I know that because of where ASEAN is, we need to create the ETO in Jakarta, closer to it. But my question is, do you think that ASEAN is the core part of One Belt, One Road? I don't think so. I think it's the opposite. Chairman, as I said, of course, One Belt, One Road covers a wide area, Europe, Asia, and Africa. But ASEAN is along the route of the Maritime Silk Road. So why don't you create an office in Central Asia, which is part of One Belt, One Road? And we're also creating the offices to tie in with a policy to develop new markets. So, well, you've done a lot in North America, plus West Europe, Asia. There are 2 in Asia. And you're downgrading Singapore, ETO, and to create a Jakarta office. Why don't you set one up in Central Asia, like Turkestan, whatever? Chairman, in my answer to Albert Chan's question, I said that in creating the ETO, we will adopt a cautious and prudent attitude to, take into consideration our trade ties with the area. Worldwide, as members said, whether in Central Asia or elsewhere, when we consider whether to create a new ETO, we will adopt the same principle. There are 4 in North America, 4 in Europe, and Asia Pacific. There are 2, Sydney, Tokyo, Singapore, and Jakarta. There's a clear division, but there's none on One Belt, One Road. Okay, your time's up. Please be reminded that whatever there's in Chinese and there's Jakarta ETO, the locally engaged staff, the provision for that have already been approved. We are just talking about or supposed to approve the pay scale and adjustment mechanism for the staff. Please don't talk about the policy because the budget for the staff deployment have been approved already. We're just asked to approve the pay scale and adjustment mechanism here. Next one is Li Chuyan. Of course, we need to hire domestic staff, but in doing that, I don't know whether this office will have the function, but the local staff is very important. That is how should we deal with the issue of foreign domestic helpers being, hired in Hong Kong as cheap labor. You heard about the Ariana case, who was tortured by her employer. Sometimes agents in Asian countries ask the domestic helpers to pay or to incur a loan before being posted in Hong Kong. So would the office look into this issue of the employment of foreign domestic helpers, and also would your locally engaged staff there have an understanding of the foreign domestic helpers market? If they have no knowledge about that, then the office may not discuss with the government there on how to curb the overcharging of foreign domestic helpers. Or would the office not do anything to curb this case of modern slavery? If not, then I think the ETO will fail to protect person-to-person interactions. We hope that for the foreign domestic helpers hired there to support local families, we need to liaise with the government there. And secondly, for One Belt, One Road, in the name of One Belt, One Road, what sorts of benefits would there be for the economic development in Hong Kong, or are we just supporting a slogan in China? When you create an overseas office, often you want to attract people to invest in Hong Kong from that country. So is it that in Hong Kong we've got many Hong Kong people who want to invest over there, or are there many people, investors from the countries that like to come to Hong Kong? Or are we just serving for the sake of One Belt, One Road? We're just serving a mainland slogan, or what? I think your questions have been asked by other members, but let me ask the DS to answer. But please ask questions that are directly related to the pay scale and adjustment mechanism for LE staff. P.S. Foreign domestic helpers will be part of the work of the new ETO. We do hope that the office can disseminate more information in relation to the foreign domestic helpers in Hong Kong, and if necessary, it can support Hong Kong departments to liaise with the counterparts in Jakarta. counterpart government office. And if there's any need for information on Hong Kong, of course, we need to get staff, locally engaged staff, who will be familiar with the foreign domestic helper issue. For Indonesian foreign domestic helpers, besides considering the headquarters in ASEAN, we are also considering the potential of Indonesia, because it makes up 40% of the ASEAN population. Its GDP makes up 40% of the GDP of ASEAN. So there will be a lot of opportunities for Hong Kong. The consumer product market and electricity market and so forth, that they represent good investment or new investment opportunities for Hong Kong. We hope that through the ETO we can attract business people there to invest in Hong Kong. That will be part of the key aspects of work of the ETO. Just then you said that you would get locally engaged staff who are familiar with the market, but people who are familiar with the foreign domestic helpers market here will be those from welfare and bureau, labor and welfare bureau. So what would you do to hire the right staff? We will remind our staff to consider recruitments or recruits who are familiar with the market. Next one, Claudia Mo. As for the calling of the city in Chinese, Yegadat or Agadat, well, I was not really talking about language issues. I don't want to dwell on it either. But just then, in the official's answer, you said that the naming of the places actually is based on common usage. Which names or callings are most commonly used. But I don't think that's true, because you failed to explain why Westminster in Chinese is like instead of Simonzi, and Havana almost the same with Chinese names of Havana. Emily Lau used Yagada in Chinese 3 times, and then you changed it though in your answer to Agada. So don't confuse issues. My question was that I want to ask you for your ETOs. I want to ask, how are your ETOs related to One Belt One Road? But that has been asked by Long Hair. So one more point here. Maybe, Chairman, you'll find me being repetitive, but just then you mentioned about the issue with Indonesian domestic helpers, and that the ETO staff will be related to part of the work of the ETO. But I think you should not say that it should be part of the work, but it should be a core aspect of the work, because we've got 150,000 Indonesian helpers in Hong Kong, serving in families of, say, 4 on average. I don't want you to give me a promise, but can you stress more that the welfare of Indonesian domestic helpers, human rights protection? Would you say that we will be definitely concerned with their human rights protection? P.S. Yes, I understand members' concern about foreign domestic helpers in Hong Kong and their rights here. You said that in Hong Kong we have 150,000 Indonesian domestic helpers and 180 other foreign domestic helpers from the Philippines. They make up more than 90% of the foreign domestic helpers in Hong Kong, and they play a very important role to Hong Kong's development. Since that we're going to have an ETO in Indonesia, so any matter related to the domestic helpers, I can say that it will be a core part of our work in Indonesia, in Jakarta, and I will again remind our staff there to more effectively carry out the core work. I also hope officials to pay attention to what I just said, that in terms of figures, it seems like Indonesian domestic helpers are not as popular as the Philippine domestic helpers, but figures are not right. Ultimately, it's the Indonesian domestic helpers who are even more popular because they can speak Cantonese. So the trend is that there'll be more Indonesian domestic helpers coming to Hong Kong. Please, actually, you need to pay more attention to them. You finished? You finished with your questioning? Okay. Claudia Mo, you finished, right? Okay. Next one is Yip Kin Yun, Chairman. For the ETO, I'd like to find out about, firstly, in the past, we have said this already. I mean, the name is Economic and Trade Office, but in Taipei it's not called ETO. It has the word culture in it. And on the Wonder One Road Scholarship, I know you want to promote educational exchanges in the area, but with the name ETO, for our work in the areas, will that actually, the name would actually narrow the scope of work to be carried out by the offices?
We've mentioned this in the council already. And as far as I know, these ETOs have a certain catchment to serve. However, reading the paper, I have yet to understand the division of labor between ETO Jakarta and ETO Singapore. Without this new office, Singapore is supposed to be responsible for the whole of Southeast Asia. Now, I'm sorry, Mr. Ip. In fact, this post has already been created, and let's not backpedal. We only talk about the pay scale and adjustment mechanism for locally engaged staff. Please do not talk about the division of labor and also the duties and responsibilities. But can I get a simple answer? Yes, please. Yes, ETOs are there to promote bilateral trade, and in areas of culture and education, our ETOs organize such activities from time to time to promote exchanges other than trade and business, and also to publicize Hong Kong's competitive edge in other areas. The new Jakarta ETO will cover Indonesia, Malaysia, Brunei, and the Philippines. And Singapore will be mainly responsible for the remaining 6 countries: Vietnam, Thailand, Cambodia, so on and so forth. So the division of labor is clear. However, Jakarta ETO will be the head office, because the Secretariat of ASEAN will be is in Jakarta. This session will end by 12:55. So when there are no more questions, I'll put this item to the vote. Mr. Long Kwok Hong, I've asked so many questions because since the headquarters of ASEAN is in Jakarta, therefore it is reasonable for you to set up a Jakarta ETO here. But if Singapore ETO is under the Jakarta ETO, this is unreasonable. Now, for Singapore, the basis for determining pay scale for LE staff, British Embassy, British Consulate General, and British High Commission. And the basis for determining pay scale for LE staff, and you believe what they do is similar to staff of UN, and therefore you have used WTO as the basis for determining pay scale for LE staff. Yes, it is correct for you to have an office in Jakarta, but if the Singapore ETO staff think that they become second class and inferior, then this is not right, because Singapore is our competitor, and Singapore is a world famous port, commercial port. And you're telling me the people stationed in Singapore will be treated inferior to that of Jakarta ETO. I really cannot accept them. Can the two be on the same footing, on equal standing? I don't know. What is the difference in pay for Singapore civil service and those are stationed in the United Nations? Can you please explain? When we visited Singapore, we met the Singapore ETO staff, and we understand that they worked very hard. The new Jakarta ETO will not cause any change to the pay and employment conditions of Singapore ETO staff. Therefore, the latter will not suffer any loss as a result of the Jakarta ETO. We want the Jakarta ETO to be responsible for matters related to ASEAN countries because the headquarters of ASEAN is here, and also the ambassador of ASEAN is also in Jakarta. So we believe it is reasonable to ask the Jakarta office to be the headquarters. So I believe colleagues of the two ETOs, although the officer in charge of the Jakarta ETO will be our most senior representative in ASEAN, it will enjoy the same status as that of the Singapore. All right. For those in favor of FCR 2016-1753, hands up. Those are against, please raise their hands. I'm of the view the members voting are in favor of the motion, so the motion is passed. Please return at 2:30. Thank you.